a number of senior officers, some non-cabinet members also present, and additional officers are also joining the meeting online. If any virtual attendees wish to speak, they should indicate with the yellow hand icon and we can pick this up during the course of the meeting. The meeting is also being streamed live and recorded by the Council for subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site. So can I please ask Cabinet colleagues to introduce themselves and state their portfolio area? If I can start with you, Councillor Carlin, please.
Councillor Dana Carlin, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate.
Councillor Seema Chandwani, Cabinet Member for Resident Services and Tackling Inequality.
And I'm Emily Arkham, Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure.
Ejda Ovet, Cabinet Member for Communities.
Lucy Desneves, Cabinet Member for Health, Social Care and Wellbeing.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence, Richards?
Apologies have been received from Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Item 3, urgent business, and there are no new items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. Can Cabinet members please indicate if they have a declaration of interest to make tonight, please? Okay, no declarations of interest. Item 5, notice of intention to conduct business in private, representations received and the response of any such representations. There were no representations received at the agenda publication stage in relation to the exempt items on the agenda. Item 6, which are the minutes. Can we please confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of November 2025 as a correct record? Agree, thank you. Item 7, deputation, petitions and questions. There were none received. Item 8, matters referred to Cabinet by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. There were none received. On to item 9, which is the 2025-26 Finance Update Quarter 2. Over to you, Councillor Carlin.
Thank you, Leader. This report provides an update of our financial position for quarter 2 of 25-26. While the report still shows an overspend on the general fund of 23.4 million, it's encouraging that this has reduced since quarter 1, substantially since the quarter 1 update, which was brought to Cabinet. Of specific note is the improved position in both adult social care and temporary accommodation, which are the two services that have shown the greatest pressures. Officers are working across the council to examine and reduce the amount that we spend. While the measures in place have reduced spend, the definition of what is essential may need to be revised going forward. The housing revenue account is affected by the rising cost of repairs and associated works, including damp and mould and disrepair. The increased investment is necessary to bring our homes up to standard so all our residents and leaseholders can live in homes that are well maintained and comfortable, a place they're proud to call home. Our capital programme is under constant review to reduce the revenue costs of borrowing, and a number of projects have been paused. However, our priority capital investments are continuing, especially where they save us revenue costs in the long run. We will continue to build new councilled homes, creating affordable homes that our residents need and reducing the costs that an unaffordable housing causes for other public services. Despite all the measures we have and are putting in place, the level of need does not match the funding we have. We recognise the uplift in funding that the new government's provided to Haringey, but we also know that they were never, of course, going to be able to reverse a decade and a half of austerity overnight. We continue to lobby and to make our case for the funding that we need in our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Any questions from the Cabinet? No. Okay. Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. One of the few areas of revenue fully in the Council's control is commercial rent. Does the Council now have a complete list of all the commercial property owned with up-to-date tenancies in place and rents being collected in line with fair market values? Do you want me to do all 3 together? The DSG SEND budget relies on support from the Safety Valve programme If the council misses its targets, what are the consequences and could the safety valve funding be put at risk? And the third one, at 8.1 of the Cabinet papers tonight on page 48, Appendix 9, it says about the council debts which have been written off in Q2 totaling 4.844 million. 81% are parking debts. So I was just wondering what specifically the council's doing to sort of recoup these bad debts. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. I will hand over to officers in terms of our commercial properties and the rents that we are receiving from them. As you are aware, it has taken a considerable amount of work for officers to actually determine over a period of time to determine exactly what our commercial portfolio looks like. But the work has been going really well. And Taryn, can I hand over to you on that? Or okay, so I'm going to hand over to Taryn for the detail. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So in terms of our commercial portfolio, so we know that we have some work to do. So if we look at the position of where we were a couple of years ago, we've got a much more comprehensive list of our commercial property estate. We do know that we have got some rent reviews and lease reviews that we're currently working through at the moment. So I think, in answer to your specific question around are we collecting all the rent that's due to us, I think it's probably fair to say that we have still got some work to do in that space. However, I would like to emphasise it is a priority, and we are focusing really on that commercial property estate. In terms of the register, we are in a much better position than we were kind of a couple of years ago, and we are working through to ensure that that is a complete list. Thanks.
Your second question is about the consequence of us missing targets in safety valve. What I would like to point out is that Haringey has been held up as being one of the exemplary boroughs in terms of the work on safety valve. It's been extremely well project managed and has achieved considerable gains in terms of what it's doing. But I will hand this over to Anne to actually go through the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you for your question. The two budgets are treated in terms of the safety valve agreement separately, and so we're measured and we report back to the DFE on the safety valve. We have a target to meet within that. We're about 2-3 million over that target. And so we have put our report in, our delivery plan update report into the DFE, and we'll see what their response to that is. In the sense of we've got 50 million to save. We think that going forward, there's still time and room to reconsider that 3 million going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And your final question is about the write-off of parking debt. We know that in certain circumstances it can be really difficult because we have people with fake number plates, etc. So, but I will hand over to Barry in terms of the actual details.
Yeah, so thank you. Hiya. So I think your question was around what's council doing in terms of chasing down the debt. I mean, there are a number of things that we're doing at the moment in terms of engaging the enforcement agent market to try and see how they can help us to collect both age debt and current debt, what we can do to make it a more competitive marketplace as well, to ensure that there's more incentive across the sort of a wider cohort of agents to collect the debt on our behalf. I think the biggest thing for us is about being able to try and prevent the debt from becoming a debt in the first place. So we're looking at a lot of our processes and systems around making it easy for people to pay, easy for people to understand that they have a debt with us and that they have received a penalty charge notice. We've also invested in our removal service. We've been working with our contractor to get effectively a zero cost enhancement of additional removals from them. So effectively giving us a kind of a secondary form of enforcement. And we're doing a piece of work at the moment using ANPR to try and identify people that are persistent evaders, so that we can effectively remove them and impound them until they make payment on the outstanding debts. So there's a lot in the pipeline that we're trying to do.
Thank you. We can move to the resolution, which is on resolutions, which are on page 37 of the agenda. Do we all agree? Thank you. Item 10, which is fees and charges 26-27. Councillor Carlin.
Our ambition in Haringey, as we know, is for a fairer and greener borough, and we need to collect fees and charges to support and maintain our first-class local public services. When we set the fees and charges, we consider affordability along with the need for investment, and we know that many households are struggling with living costs. For that reason, most of the fees will not rise above inflation. There are some where we are bringing the price down towards the cost of delivering the service to protect the service in the longer term. But there are others where we are, and you will see from the notes of the actual specifics, where we are moving towards either full cost recovery, and in that case, we're also benchmarking against other boroughs to make sure that Haringey is not an outlier and is charging similar amounts of money in comparison to other boroughs. This list of fees and charges and the increases are really important because they allow us, in the financial circumstances that we are in Haringey, to continue to deliver the services that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Is there any questions from the Cabinet? No. Councillor Connor?
Thank you, Chair. So parking related charges requires a statutory consultation. So what fraction of the proposed charges do you think will not go ahead after the consultation? The report states that most fees will not rise above inflation because we know how households are struggling with living costs. So if you're charging less than the cost of services you provide, who ultimately will end up paying the price? Would it be council taxpayers with the added interest? And I note in the report it mentions that there was a £10 to replace food caddies for individual households if they get lost or they disappear somehow. Won't this just lead to neighbours sort of using the next doors and popping it in their own drive because they won't want to pay the £10 that they would need to replace it? Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. I will hand over to colleagues in terms of the parking consultation, but at this point in time, we haven't yet had the consultation, so I don't think it's possible for us to actually make predictions. Is there anything further to add, Barry?
Thank you. Just the only point to make is that it's not the same on fees and charges in terms of consultation statutorily for parking as it would be to say a change of a parking fee, where we go through a consultation approach and invite objections. It's a notice of variation. So we make a notice saying that we're varying the charges as opposed to a consultation on would you like the charges to be higher. And that's following the standard government process that's set out in the Traffic Management Act.
Thank you. In terms of where we're not putting up the full amount to the full amount, that's considered really carefully. You'll see it's not many of our fees and charges, and the other reason for us not putting up is if it would make the service, if people using the service would stop using the service, so it would be counterproductive to put up the fees and charges because fewer people would actually then use the service. So the decision on fees and charges is very carefully taken and very carefully looked at to look, as I said, at a combination of, the standard is 3.8%, but where it's not 3.8%, it's very carefully looked at to consider what the service needs, what benchmarked against neighbouring boroughs, and looking at what it's actually costing us to deliver the service. So these things are carefully looked at. It's not just that other taxpayers will be paying. In terms of the £10 food caddies, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Chandwani as to whether there has actually been any evidence of people using other people's food caddies. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Connor, can you just tell me where you found that? Have you got it?
To be honest, I have read it and I remember looking at it thinking, oh, that's going to be interesting. I know what's going to happen there. But can I tell you the page number sitting here right now? I'm very sorry I can't, but we can come back to you with the page number on it.
I'm just checking with the corporate director if he's got it. You got it?
No, I'll make a point on the food caddy. Just to say that we haven't had any benchmarking to suggest that there is a kind of sort of an endemic around food caddy theft as a result of charges. So that hasn't, when we've engaged other local authorities that have done it, we haven't had that back as feedback as a risk. But it's an interesting point, Councillor Carr. Like, I mean, maybe there is.
Well, it's just one of those things. If you lose your food caddy, it's not intentional normally, is it? Sort of these things happen. And yeah, I just wondered. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Sorry, can I just check? So the only one we can find is under commercial. There's a £10 food caddy for replacing commercial food caddies. And that's £10 and it's the 23-litre food caddy for commercial.
So there's no charge. Okay, that was my fault.
Okay, sorry.
I thought
You got me a bit worried.
I thought I'd read that as a £10 for a resident. So that was my sort of overexcited reading of the papers. So there you go. But thank you. I'm glad to know that there's not a £10 food. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you.
So I think all that was clear, but Councillor Chandwani, I don't know if you just want to be really explicitly clear, just in case people listening in have kind of dipped in and out.
No problem. So if you look on the paperwork for this agenda item on page 196, there's a subheading called commercial waste, and it goes over 2 pages. And on the second page, still under that subheading, there is a replacement commercial 23-litre food waste caddy, which we are going to be charging. So the law recently changed, and businesses now need to provide food recycling, which they didn't have to before. And that's why it's new, because now we have to provide them the food caddies. And so we've added the charge to it.
Thank you for the clarity. Okay, so if we can move on to the resolution, which is on page 150 of the agenda. Are we all in agreement? Item 11, which is the housing revenue account 2627, Councillor Carlin.
Thank you, Leader. Housing is about fairness. Everyone should have a home that is affordable, safe, warm and comfortable, a home that meets their needs and supports their well-being. In Haringey, we're taking bold action. We're prioritising affordable housing, delivering thousands of new council homes at council rents and renovating thousands more to ensure they're fit for the future. Our housing revenue account is being directed towards these priorities: affordable, high-quality homes for residents and investing in our communities. This means that delivering 3,000 new council homes 3,000 high-quality council homes by 2031, with 2,000 underway and already 840 complete, investing nearly 600 million to bring our existing stock up to standard through our major works programme that includes renovating kitchens and bathrooms, better insulation and efficient boilers, and improving safety measures, including CCTV and secure access. Like all budgets, the housing revenue account has faced significant pressure from inflation and high interest rates, which have driven up the cost of buildings and repairs. We are taking steps to ensure we achieve our priorities whilst ensuring the budget remains sustainable for the long term. This report sets out how we will achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Any questions from the Cabinet on this report? No. Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see the government has acknowledged the need to close the gap for rents, which are below the formula rent. So how much does this gap currently cost Haringey? How many years would it take for this gap to be eliminated under the scenarios currently being considered? And the second question is, we agree with your statement that everyone should have a home that is affordable, safe, warm, comfortable. How many of our council homes need to be retrofitted with heat pumps or heat network to ensure they can be maintained at a healthy temperature for an affordable cost? And how much would it cost to bring all our homes up to this standard? And is there any funding available for this, either from the HRA or from grant funding? Thank you.
I'm going to hand over to Jarhead on the formula rent.
The HRA business plan talks to the proposal on rent convergence proposed by the current government. £1 equates to around 700,000 in revenue contribution, £2 equates to 1.5 million, and £3 equates to around 2 million. Whilst the current phase is through consultation, a decision hasn't been made. We do expect, as part of the consultation, we made a submission on Haringey's part, as well as the London Council's response, that there should be a £3 rent convergence. That seems unlikely, and what may happen may be a £1 rent convergence may be agreed, or £2. At the point when it's published, that would then be reflected on the business plan. At the moment, it's not reflecting on the business plan.
Thank you. And the second question was on, sorry, could you just repeat your second question?
It was about the safe, warm homes and the retrofitting of heat pumps and, did I say? Yeah, heat pumps or heat networks to ensure they can be maintained at a healthy temperature.
Again, could I defer to others, please?
We've currently got a programme on doing net zero works, which does include heat pump replacement. So we've got a scheme on the Codfall estate. It's currently being funded through a combination of grant funding that we got through the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, as well as a contribution from the Housing Revenue Account. And that's a very targeted scheme looking at houses and replacing a number of components, including windows, heat pumps, boilers, roofs.
Okay, the final part of that was, I don't expect the answer tonight, but how long would it take for all the councils' homes to be brought up to that sort of standard? And have you got any sort of estimation of that work? I mean, I can have that as a written answer.
So part of the asset management strategy confirms we plan to bring all of our homes within decency standard by 27-28. The decency standard is slightly different to the work we're doing around net zero. The net zero includes a higher level of thermal installation and significant more work. So they're two different sort of measures we're using in housing. The decency is obviously the priority, and the net zero work is to bring all of our homes within energy efficiency A. So the two sort of matrix we're using, but the priority for housing is to get all of our homes within decency by 27-28.
If we can move on to the resolutions, which are on page 254 of the agenda. Are we all in agreement? Agreed, thank you. Item 12, which is adopting a new antisocial behaviour policy. Councillor Oval.
Thank you, Chair. This Labour administration is unwavering in its commitment to creating a safer, stronger and more secure environment for every resident, business and visitor in our borough. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home, in their neighbourhood and in the public spaces they share with others. Tackling antisocial behaviour is therefore one of our highest priorities. We know the profound and lasting impact ASB can have on individuals, families and communities, and we are determined to address it with clarity, consistency and resolve. To support this commitment, we recognise the need for a comprehensive ASB policy, one that clearly sets out our responsibilities, processes and procedures for preventing, responding to and reducing antisocial behaviour. This policy has been shaped through extensive collaboration across the council, drawing on the expertise of community safety, park services, estates, safeguarding, external partners, including the police, and the council's scrutiny panel. I want to extend particular thanks to the Resident Voice Board and to everyone who contributed through our online consultation. Your insights have been invaluable in ensuring this policy is robust, effective, and firmly grounded in the real experiences of our communities. The ASB policy applies to all Haringey residents, businesses, and visitors. It reflects our commitment to building safe, cohesive, and resilient communities and sets out our approach to tackling antisocial behaviour, both in public spaces and in the homes and neighbourhoods we manage as a social landlord. I am proud to recommend the adoption of this policy by Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Over. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Arkell.
So I'm sat right next to you, so it's a bit odd asking you a question, but like a lot of residents, I've experienced antisocial behaviour in the flat that I live in. So what I would like to know is how will this policy help deal with antisocial behaviour for our residents, please?
Thank you, Councillor Arkell. The intention of this policy is to make it clearer and easier for residents to understand the definitions, processes and procedures relating to ASB. It allows residents to see the multi-agency approach the Council takes in dealing and preventing ASB. This policy marks the beginning of a broader commitment. We recognise there is still much to do, but next steps will include updating our website, preparing a noise nuisance protocol, and developing internal procedures and guidance to support staff in implementing the policy.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. It was great to read the report. It was made very interesting reading, and it's great that it's being adopted. Just a couple of questions really on it. So the policy places more emphasis on early intervention, but doesn't quantify staffing or resource implications. So will Cabinet provide resourcing details before the implementation on the 23rd of December? The consultation feedback on page 311 shows strong calls to address antisocial behaviour in supported housing and HMOs. How will the Council monitor whether these concerns improve after the policy change? And thirdly, the policy confirmed reports can be made anonymously. I think that's right. Page 312. Though this limits follow-up. But what safeguards ensure anonymous reporting does not lead to vexatious or discriminatory complaints? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. So in terms of the resources and the implementation, I mean, I don't know if you've seen in the report, but we take a multi-agency approach, especially in terms of prevention. We've got the partnership problem solving group. So this is not just council services, but it's also the police and other homelessness outreach networks to help us where we are stretched, because not just us in the council, but our external partners such as the police are stretched in terms of resources. So we're looking at more of a partnership approach in dealing with ASB. In terms of, sorry, I forgot your second question. What was that?
It's around the consultation feedback showed strong calls to address antisocial behaviour in supported housing and HMOs, and it's about monitoring whether these concerns improve after the policy change. It's about the monitoring.
Yeah, we'll definitely have monitoring in place, but I guess the officers will be able to expand on that. And the third question?
It confirms that these reports can be made anonymously. You just wanted me to repeat that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a confidentiality section within that, so that's just to make sure that that's in place. So.
In terms of monitoring performance, there's a suite of performance indicators for our own service within the council, but also it was last week I had a meeting with all the RSLs where we spoke about the new policy and their involvement in driving our own standards and also learning from those other stakeholders. We want to get a consistent approach across not only our own private accommodation, our council accommodation, but also the 15,000 units of accommodation across other RSLs. So our aim is very long-term in achieving long-term outputs and outcomes, such as the reduction of repeat victimisation and so forth. So there'll be a suite of KPIs that we monitor.
So if we can move to the resolution, which is on page 278 of the agenda, are we all in agreement? Okay, along the same theme, adopting a new good neighbourhood management policy. Councillor Over.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to introduce the Good Neighbourhood Management Policy on behalf of Councillor Williams. This policy applies to Haringey Council tenants and leaseholders and represents a significant step forward in our mission to improve quality of life for those who live in our homes. Not all issues between neighbours meet the threshold for antisocial behaviour or constitute a tenancy breach, yet they can still have a real impact on everyday life. This policy sets out how we will respond to those situations, providing residents with the right guidance, support, and tools to resolve concerns constructively and collaboratively. It also enables us to deliver on a key recommendation from the Housing Ombudsman to develop a proactive good neighbourhood management policy distinct from the AESB policy and offering a clear framework for maintaining positive and respectful neighbourhood relationships. The voices and experiences of our residents have been central to shaping this policy. Through the Resident Voice Board and our online consultation, your contributions have ensured that this policy responds to real needs and reflects the lived reality of our communities. I want to express my sincere gratitude for the invaluable input from the group and from all residents who shared their views. Your insight has strengthened this policy and ensured it truly supports harmonious, resilient neighbourhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Over. Any questions from the Cabinet? Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you. So I suppose it's similar to a question that I asked earlier. And so this policy does interact heavily with the new antisocial behaviour policy. So I suppose it's really asking how we clarify where responsibilities differ, and particularly for state-based issues that fall into both. So was there clarity within that process for officers? Second one was, how will the council measure whether neighbourhood interventions actually reduce repeat complaints? Because there isn't a baseline data in the report. So that was that second question. And the third one was on page 339, it states the policy forms part of the housing improvement programme. So what additional budget or officer capacity is allocated to ensure the policy leads to real behaviour change? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of the first question, I think it is set out, the distinction between the ASB policy and the good neighbourhood management policy is set out within the policy itself. And it's also dealt with under a case-by-case basis. So they will look at a certain criteria, and examples of that are provided within the report itself. In terms of questions 2 and 3, I'll leave it to the officers. Thanks.
On the reducing the complaints is setting out clearly the possible solutions within the policy that residents can take, which I think is one thing that could help address repeat complaints on there, which help there. And in terms of on the second point about the resources for behaviour change, it's part of the housing improvement plan, which already has an allocated budget, which is sort of broadly across the piece for a range of policies to deliver that, which includes this one as part of the ASB reduction work in housing management. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to also mention the fact that we're forming an ASB strategic group that's going to oversee the impact of the policies and the strategies in relation to antisocial behaviour. It's really important. And I'd also mention there's other measurements that we can use as proxy measures, such as the public attitude confidence surveys that Plead use. Antisocial behaviour is the biggest driver of public confidence in the system. And so we can use the proxy measures from the Metropolitan Police in their surveys, which have been going for 15, 20 years now. And what we anticipate seeing is an improvement in confidence over a period of time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So if we can move to the resolution, which is on page 338 of the agenda, is everyone in agreement? Item 14, which is the disrepair new contract procurement. Councillor Carlin.
Thank you. We want fairer housing across our borough, safe, warm, comfortable, affordable homes for all. We're retrofitting and refurbishing our council homes all over Haringey, and our state renovation plan will put more than 500 million into home improvements and bring 100% of our council homes in Haringey up to decent home standard by 2028. However, this what we need to address is the position of our current council homes. And this is a new contract for disrepair cases, which will take us further. It will bring in additional contractors to deal with repair works for formal disrepair cases, helping us clear the backlog inherited from our outsourced service to building a high-performing repair service for our residents. Thank you.
Right. Any questions from the Cabinet? Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. The report refers to procuring new disrepair contractor, but lacks detail on expected caseload reductions. So what metrics will define success? Will these be reduced claims, fast repairs, or reduced legal costs? Question 2, given the HRA's current pressures on the repairs budget on page 256, how will the new contract avoid unintended cost escalation? And number 3, has the council benchmarked typical disrepair contract performance standards with other boroughs? And if so, how does the proposed specification differ? Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. I'm going to defer to Jahid to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jadal Rahman, Director of Housing. So the ultimate measure of disrepair success is the total number of disrepair cases that you've got. So the lower, the better. So since November 2023, we've closed down just under 1,300 disrepair cases. What this procurement allows us to do is enables us to focus on the remaining cases that we've got with a view to get those closed down. In terms of the benchmark of cost, so I think across London, all local authorities have seen an increase in disrepair cost. It has become an industry by itself where it's highly profitable for legal firms to pursue and encourage tenants to open disrepair cases. We've seen, certainly in Haringey and across London actually, solicitor firms actively door knocking, targeting residents to encourage them to make a disrepair claim. So across London, there's been an overall increase in disrepair claims. However, in Haringey, I am happy to confirm our position currently compared to where we were 2 years ago is significantly better. And by year end, we're hoping to have an all-time record of the number of disrepair cases that we've got opened, which will be a net reduction.
So, so just the other questions around the performance with benchmark. Have we benchmarked with other councils?
So the disrepair case will vary case by case. So some particular properties may have more complex works that need to be done in comparison to other cases. So it really does vary. That there isn't a average that we'd use across every single disrepair case. I'm not sure if you want to come into that point anymore.
So we haven't conducted any formal benchmarking exercises with other local authorities. Which particular elements were you interested in benchmarking?
I haven't got the specifics in front of me, but if you would like, I'm sure I could put some together for you later.
Thank you.
And then my final one was, how will the new contract avoid unattended cost escalations because of the increase in cost and repair budgets?
Yeah. So ultimately what pushes the legal disrepair case is the solicitor's cost. We've got a new model of working where the moment a disrepair case is raised with us, we do want to get into the property, get our surveyors to agree the works and carry out the works as soon as possible. What pushes and increases the cost is when that gets protracted, it's then dealt by lawyers, both our lawyers and the tenant solicitors, and that significantly increases the cost. So we've implemented a new model in Haringey where it encourages early settlement and early agreement on the works and the specification. So the moment we're notified, we can go in and do the works. What this contract allows us to do is exactly that, have the right contractor capacity to go in and complete the works without the need for it to go to legal, where you then face increased cost.
Okay, so we will return to the resolutions after considering the exempt information at item 24. We can move to item 15, which is the Haringey's Climate Change Adaptation and Resilience Action Plan. Councillor Katter.
Thank you, Chair. The fundamental link between social equity and injustice and climate are made real in this policy. It's a very comprehensive, detailed action plan, delivery focused, which looks at how we collect data, how we collate data, how we share data, how we work between the services within the council as well as with our partners externally. And it has the at every action at its heart is targeted at the most vulnerable residents first, protecting them first against the clear risks that have been identified for this borough from climate change, which is not a future threat, but a threat that we have seen now and in the very present, and has taken lives of Haringey residents in the heat waves in recent years, as well as the floods, causing huge amounts of damage and storms, which we expect to see more frequently and more extremely. So this plan is a very Haringey centric one, firmly based around the twin sort of focuses of public health and of social equity, and has been led by our public health team, which is a key aspect of this plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Dasnevs.
Chair, if you'll permit me, not so much a question, but an observation about how important this report is, and really pleased to see us ahead of time and the actual target of 2028. And also wanted to share with the Cabinet that I was at a meeting last week of my equivalents, and there's a lot of good discussion about a London-wide approach to resilience on specifically heat in this particular case. And so look forward to us participating with other boroughs, using the thinking we've already done and no doubt improving and developing what we do for a London approach. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dasnevs. Any comments from the rest of the Cabinet? No. Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. So I noticed that the planning includes sort of adaptation actions in the mid-report bit and the appendix, but I wasn't sure which were funded. So have you got actions that are fully costed for delivery in 26, 27, or is it still waiting funding for specific areas? The second question was the borough-wide climate risk assessment identifies overheating and surface water flooding as major risks. So what specific indicators will be used to track adaptation progress? And the third question is several actions rely on external funding. So what's the contingency plan if grants, so for example, DEFRA, do not materialise? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pippa. And I mean, two of those are kind of connected, which is the fundraising question and then the contingency plans for the funding. I will pass over to Angrid in a second, who is one of the key authors of the plan. But just to say that essentially this is a organisation-wide plan and a sector-wide plan in terms of the public sector and BCS. So some of the interventions will be from specific departments. So for instance, from highways, so the SUDS programme looking at flooding will come from budgets that are already there. So one of the key aspects of this is not to make it into a siloed affair. It is every officer is a climate officer, and therefore every budget is a climate budget. However, obviously, as a key driver is looking for those funds that government or other funders are putting forward that are strictly climate related, and Angrid can probably talk to a couple of those. But obviously contingency is based on exactly that. But the point is it's got to be funded by what's already happening, by those programs looking essentially maybe slightly more broadly at climate related interventions in their areas. In terms of, tracking overheating and surface water, tracking those, sorry. So this is a data monitoring question, I think.
Yeah, so it's about the indicators to track the adaptation progress. So as you
Right.
do the progress, how are we tracking that that's working?
Right. Okay. Yeah, great question. And I will pass to Angrid, and Barry might have a couple of things on that as well.
Yeah, so just to add to what Councillor Carter mentioned about the funding, I guess he's mainly mentioned all of it. I think it just sort of speaks to the fact that sort of governance, national governance around adaptation, statutory action is across lots of different acts, across the Climate Change Act, Environmental Act, across Civil Contingencies Act, in terms of emergency preparedness. So what we've tried to do here is really think about leveraging existing funding streams across the council, across different departments, and the plan mainly aims to just consolidate all of those great actions that are happening across the council already. We don't have anything that does that, and as mentioned, in preparation for the adaptation reporting power, which will be required of all councils in 2028, we're being on the front foot in terms of having that all in one place. In terms of the surface water flood risk, it is a good question. So we do have a Haringey surface water flood plan. I am from public health. I'm not a surface water flood expert, but I do believe that when that plan is to be relooked at, there will be some comparisons about what, so a lot of the actions here are taken from the actions from that plan as well. So that will be compared, but also we have at the moment a heatwaves joint strategic needs assessment, which a lot of our backing data that inform the plan came from, includes a lot of mapping of risk, including sort of heat risk, but also we do have maps that were created with Bloomberg, another international agency, on surface water flood risk. So we have those available as sort of baseline. So when we kind of are looking at progress of the plan and some of the actions, we can also redo those mapping and sort of see whether we've seen a decrease in risk.
Thank you. So if we can agree the resolution, which is on 389 of the agenda, are we all in agreement? Great, thank you. If we can move on to item 16, which is the Housing Asset Management Multidisciplinary Consultants Contract. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm very pleased to be bringing forward this paper to Cabinet on behalf of Councillor Williams. So this is asking for support for an award of contract for housing stock major works amounting to 570 million over 10 years. So this is a major investment into existing council housing stock, which comes to about 20,500 homes across the borough. It is a contract that will ensure that we will have 4 long-term partnership contracts within that scheme that is geographically based. The initial contract will be for contract will be for 12 years, but an initial five years, but subject to performance. And it does mean, as I think we heard from Jarhead earlier on, talking about how we're going to bring the homes up to achieve 100% decency in our housing stock by 2028, and this is going to be the main way in which we are going to achieve that. And it will also add to the our ambitions on achieving zero carbon targets, because the EPC ratings will go from C, an average of C, up to B, and that means for our tenants, and they achieve homes that are warmer and cooler, and also cheaper to run. So there's a lot resting on this particular moving forward with these contracts. There's also embedded within the contract social value commitments of one apprenticeship for every £1 million of expenditure, and of course, in addition to that, the wider jobs that are on offer and the enhancement to the local supply chain. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Is there any questions from the Cabinet? Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. The report notes consultancy support for surveys, compliance and programme planning, but doesn't show how duplication with in-house teams will be avoided. What governance prevents overlapping work? The second question is, given current HRA constraints, what's the expected return on investment? So, for example, better procurement outcomes, reduce contract variation orders, or improve compliance? And then third question is, will residents groups be able to see the non-exempt elements of consultants' reports given past criticism of transparency in major works planning? Thank you.
I think those are quite detailed technical questions, which I'm not qualified to answer, but there are officers here, senior officers, who I'm sure will introduce themselves first. Jared has already spoken, but I don't know who's going to speak first, but I'll have to hand over for all three of those questions.
Thank you. Christine Carlisle, Assistant Director for Asset Management. On your first point, this is a call-off contract. So this will only be used when we have need for services. We will have a contract management function in place. So there won't be any duplication because these contracts are fulfilling services we can't deliver in-house. Second, with the return on investment, this reduces our need to procure on a partial basis. This gives us capacity to call off with competition between the 4 contracts, so that avoids procurement costs, and we can set rates for the year, so we have that certainty on costs, so that reduces staff costs. And the third thing with the residents groups, we will be engaging with residents as and when we deliver work. I'm not sure.
And I think this is to add on your final point, often when on the plan investment side, we do enter into large value contracts. There may be contractual variations. Part of this contract enables us to use independent third-party cost consultants to validate the contractor's variations to determine to what extent are the variations reasonable. So it should actually enhance and improve our value for money aspect and the internal assurance that we may need around any variations for invoices that we may get from external contractors.
Thank you. So we'll return to the resolutions after considering exempt information at item 25. If I can move on to item 17, which is housing related support, domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. Councillor Das-Neves, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report at item 17 details the award of key contracts for support relating to domestic abuse. Of course, we'd like violence against women and girls to end. And we have a programme that in place to tackle and address some of the contributing factors in our community. And we also welcome some recent commitments by national government to make this area a priority. However, in the meantime, these contracts and the support that they provide are essential to people in the borough. And they were developed, or the tender rather, was developed with people with lived experience and people who support people with lived experience in the borough. So we're confident that they address the needs of those affected in Haringey, and I recommend the report to you.
Thank you, Councillor Das-Neves. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Over.
Thank you. Why was the decision made to insource the multi-agency risk assessment conference coordination?
Thanks for the question. It is indeed funny answering a question next to each other. Kaz right. To be blunt, quite a few other local authorities already do that. And looking at how they run it, we thought it was something that could work here locally. The other reality is that there's a lot of pressure on the marketplace at the moment, and there's very little competition in this area. So it makes it hard to extract the kind of best value necessarily and get that range of tenders that bids that are coming in to the tender. So broadly, we think it's the right thing and will give us a bit more control and a way to design that service in a way that's close to some of the other work we're doing locally, but also we're more likely to give us better value, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Das Neves. Is there any more questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Hurkata.
Did the bids submitted offer local employment opportunities and otherwise provide community benefit?
Thanks for the question. Absolutely. Obviously, across procurement, I know we've discussed it here before, the importance of social value. And so within that bid process, we're seeing providers both agreeing to work with us and go in and do work, for example, in schools around promoting healthy relationships and be part of that preventative work alongside their bid, but also with a real focus on local employment. And in particular, something we're particularly pleased about is offering 6 weeks annually of undergraduate or postgraduate work experience to students. So quite a good offer there. And all of the providers have had to do a quite detailed assessment of their social value, which I think you'll be able to see in or address in Part B.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Cabinet? Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Das Neves. This is a really important report coming to us tonight. My first question is, the pathway implies increased support capacity, but the report doesn't detail staffing levels or unit capacity. How many additional householders can be supported under the new model? How will the council ensure non-discriminatory access for groups who historically underreport abuse, for example, migrant women, disabled women, LGBTQ and survivors? And the third one that I just wanted to ask was, when I was reading the report, I wondered if within this that we're commissioning as a council specific support for young girls, children who have been victims of any grooming gangs. I wasn't sure where that fell within this remit or if there was a separate report around that. Thank you.
Thanks for the questions. What I'll do is I'll do my best to answer. Some of them are a bit technical, and I'll bring Zara, who've got online, who can answer some of the technical side. I'll tackle the supporting underreported communities. So within our Violence Against Women and Girls services, we have some very specific services that are actually aimed at particular communities. That's a really important part of the offer, because we know, as you say, some people don't feel comfortable reporting, but also we want to provide the kind of support in their own home language, community language, but also with really targeted support. So we do have an offer for the LGBTQ plus community. We also have an offer for minoritized women, for example, Turkish speakers. And we have the London Black Women's Project operating also in Harrogate at the moment. So they're the kinds of examples of that bespoke work. And we're always, and actually we see quite a lot of success. Zara might want to say a bit more about that with those, with that very targeted work, sometimes better than the more general, probably for the reasons that you set out around underreporting. I'm going to leave Zara, bring in Zara for some of the technical around numbers of capacity and specific support for girls and grooming gangs, if that's okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, I'm joining virtually. Can everyone hear me okay? So in terms of the kind of the cultural element that Councillor Daznella just spoke to, so what we've done as part of the recommissioning of the services is be really specific in terms of the kind of buy-in for organisations, especially for minoritized women. So we've got specialist providers such as Imiche and London Black Women's Project offering that culturally specific support, and all of our providers, regardless, have to demonstrate compliance with the Equalities Act duties and deliver staff training around cultural awareness. We recognise often the increase in presentations in domestic abuse. So we've been working really collaboratively with housing to make sure that there's kind of emergency support options for women that are fleeing domestic abuse. But within the kind of refuge provision, our real commitment has been ensuring that there's enough adequate space available as and when a woman and her family need to flee a violent situation. And that will continue to be monitored with the providers as and when we kind of receive referrals through the national mechanism. Additionally, I think one of the main kind of importance is having kind of a sub-region approach and working with other local authorities to ensure that there's adequate supply of refuge provision in the borough. In terms of young girls, so in the service tendering, we unfortunately did not get any compliant bids for the young women and children's aspect of I think it was lot 6. But what we're doing is continuing to ensuring continuation of the existing service to ensure that we have the capacity there, and we're going to be going back out to market. And one aspect is to ensure that there is that support available for young women that are at risk of grooming.
Thank you, Zara. Okay, so we will return to the resolutions after considering the exempt information item 26. Item 18, which is Stamford Hill Primary School, which is added to the new homes programme. Councillor Brabazon.
Council rent by 2031. And we are creating more genuinely affordable and high quality homes across the borough. The numbers are essential, but we're focused as much on quality as quantity and building homes that will last with great standards of insulation, interior and exterior design, and a strong mix of family and individual homes. They're well insulated, energy efficient, and I would urge anyone who travelling across the borough to just look at some of the new housing on Parkview Road at Wingspan Court, which is absolutely beautiful. Public land should be used to maximise the public good, meeting local infrastructure needs and providing affordable spaces and services. At the old Stamford Hill School site, we're planning to prioritise the newly freed up public land for affordable public housing. And from initial estimates, we think we could build at least 130 to 150 council homes, many of which will be obviously excuse me, family homes, and I commend this report to the Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Brabazon. Any questions from the Cabinet? Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Brabazon. So I've just got one question on for you on this report, really. So it's really, I mean, it's great to see about the council home provision that's going to be on this site. But I just wanted to ask, what assessment has been made of the need for other educational infrastructure in the area, like sound provision, to avoid the use of expensive private sector alternatives actually on this site when you were doing the whole appraisal? Thank you.
We've spent around 6 million on 3 primary schools in the local area: Chestnuts, West Green and Seven Sisters. We have a nurture hub at Seven Sisters Primary, which supports our youngest primary children who have behavioural problems. And of course, Safety Valve has meant that we're extending provision for children with other special needs. So we've got the autism base at Earlsmead, which will accommodate 15 children. Currently has, I think, 3 or 4, as build the numbers up. And we've just opened another base at the Brook. So that's for younger children. And just slightly further along at Riverside, there's a new section for young people with profound and multiple difficulties. So we're definitely meeting the needs of special needs.
Thank you, Councillor Brabazon. So we agree the resolutions as contained on page 580 of the report. Great. Thank you. Item 19, which is Tower Gardens major works. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. So again, I'm presenting this paper on behalf of Councillor Williams. And this is another request for approval of an award of contract totaling 3.4 million. It will affect the White Hart Lane ward because it's about the uplift of 77 tenanted properties on the Tower Gardens estate. I would urge anybody who's not been around the Tower Gardens estate to go and have a look. It's quite a unique estate in our borough, and the houses are of a particular architectural merit, and therefore takes a specialist attention to looking after them and making sure that they are kept up to the standards that are required. So we need this sort of specialist contract in place so that we can preserve the architectural integrity of the estate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Any questions from the Cabinet on this report? No. Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. So just one question on the report, actually. So the report rightly identifies it's within the heritage area. So how is the council looking to manage costs within this? Because obviously the work within a heritage site will be a lot, well, I think we would imagine to be a lot more expensive than if we were just doing it sort of to the normal standard housing. So what checks and balances will be in place to prevent rising costs happening if contractors come back and suddenly say, actually, it's going to cost us an awful lot more? Thank you.
Thanks. I'll have to hand over to the officers to talk about the governance of how we're going to monitor this contract.
Thank you. In specifying and designing the scheme to go out to tender, we did include all the elements related to it being in a conservation area. So the contractors have bid on the basis that they will be meeting the obligations and planning requirements of the conservation area. So we would not be expecting any increase in cost because we have done the planning and specified the work up front.
Thank you. So we will return to the resolutions after considering the exempt information, item 27. There's certainly a cough doing the rounds tonight, isn't it? Okay, item 20, which is minutes of other bodies. Can we please note the minutes of the cabinet member sign-ins from pages 633 to 652? Are they noted? Item 21, which is significant and delegated actions. Can we please note the significant and delegated actions taken by directors? And these are on pages 635 to 656. Item 22, new items of urgent business. There are none for this section. So if I can move to item 23, which is exclusion of the press and public. Items 24, 25, 26 and 27 allow for consideration of exempt information in relation to items 14, 16, 17 and 19. Can I please move that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting to consider this exempt information as defined under paragraph 3 and 5, part 1, schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Agreed. Thank you. So I'm now formally closing the public section of this meeting.